Hello, I'm here today in one of the Citizens Theatre rehearsal rooms with Dominic Hill, who has recently been appointed as the new artistic director of the Citizens, and a very welcome addition to the Glasgow theatre scene. Congratulations, Dominic.
Thanks, Tony.
How are you feeling about the new job?
I feel very excited. I've been here just a few months now, and I guess since I started here, what's really struck me is the enthusiasm for this building, and an incredible kind of will and sense of support for its future life and for what we can do here. It's amazing how many times I've met people, whether they're politicians or just people who live locally, and they've all said to me, you know, they love the Sits. They invariably say, my first theatre going experience was going to see the Pint at the Sits when I was 8 or 9 years old. And so it feels really special to be part of an organisation that has that sense of history, and that sense of really belonging to a city and to a community.
And your own journey has been very varied and different. You were the artistic director at the Travellers shortly before you came here, and before that at Dundee. Right. Tell us, how's that going to feed into where you are now?
I first came to Scotland to work actually in '94, so how many years ago that is, when I was assistant director at Perth, and you know, it never occurred to me that I would be spending most of my professional career, certainly to date, in Scotland. But you know, from that time, working at Perth, where I first started doing mainly kind of, you know, classic plays, I really loved the theatre community up here, the kind of sense of, I think there's a real kind of sense that you can do anything that you like up here, and I guess that's what, when I came up to Dundee originally, really appealed to me, that sense that I was out of London, I was out of a very kind of cutthroat world, and a wonderful sense at Dundee, especially with the company, of a sense that you could do anything. You could it was important about making great theatre, and you weren't restrained by a kind of typical English repertoire that you would have in regional theatres. So that we did a lot of Shakespeare, we did Howard Barker, we did Alfred Jarry, and I guess it was there that I got a real sense and love of doing kind of big classic plays. Peer Gynt was, I suppose, the kind of combination of that. But before that, you know, we did Ubu and a lot of Shakespeare's. And then I suppose I felt like a change, really, and the Travellers was a very different organisation. But that taught me a lot about, you know, the skill and the art of writing a play, and what makes a play work, the structure of a play, as well as introduced me to a whole kind of different community of theatre makers, you know, living theatre makers, whereas I've mainly been working with dead ones. And so that, I think that just kind of enriched my own understanding and experience. And then I'd always loved the Sits since I first came here when I was at Perth. So, you know, in the early 90s was when I first came here. I remember seeing Women Beware Women, played by Philip. And, you know, I always, you know, from that moment found it an incredibly special place to be. And I've always said that, you know, if you're a kid and you're interested in theatre, the Sits is sort of what you think a theatre is and should be. Whether it's the fact that, you know, under the stage there's the old Victorian machinery, the fact that we've got these great rehearsal rooms, the fact that you wander around and you get lost, and it's a kind of magical place. And when you know, the job came up, you know, I felt I had to apply for it, and I feel very honoured that that I've got that job here.
It's a wonderful auditorium, isn't it? Although it's quite big, it seats, what, 600 people.
Yeah.
You never feel very far from the stage.
No, I mean, it's funny because I've yet to make a piece of work in there, so I have to kind of understand it and discover the space. But something extraordinary happens, isn't it, when you walk? I mean, the foyer is not the most beautiful place in the world, but then you walk through those doors and you're in that space, and it's kind of incredible.
Yeah.
And I think you're right that the stage feels like it's both intimate and epic.
Yes.
And you know, and that's sort of perfect. Isn't
Yes.
it?
Yes. So tell me a little bit about your first choices of plays, the ones you're going to do yourself, which are going to start quite soon.
Yeah. I wanted kind of to make a statement with my first season, which was about that we were here to put on great plays, classic plays, and do them in the most kind of exciting and accessible way possible. And that's kind of what I've always tried to do with the kind of, particularly Shakespeare's classic plays I've done, Peer Gynt, for example. So we're doing Betrayal by Harold Pinter, swiftly followed by King Lear, followed by a double bill of Krapp's Last Tape and Footfalls by Samuel Beckett. So someone did say to me it's the season of gloom the other day, and maybe a little bit of truth in that, but they're great plays by great playwrights,
Yeah.
really good casts, and I think that's what the Six is here to do, predominantly, not totally, but predominantly.
Yeah.
Certainly what that main auditorium is all about.
Yes.
I think no one else in Glasgow is putting on those plays, and after all, they're classic plays because they're brilliant.
Yes.
And so, you know, I hope we can start off with a bit of a bang and go, this is who we are, this is what we're here to do.
Yes. And although they're, I wouldn't describe it as doom and gloom so much as rich in human experience.
Absolutely, I'd agree to it. Yeah, I mean they're plays.
They're serious plays.
They're serious plays, but they are plays, you know, like most great drama, about what it means to be alive and to live in the world. And you know, I was just thinking yesterday, particularly about King Lear. King Lear is the most extraordinary play about a man learning to understand humanity, empathy. He goes from being a king to being a human being, and he understands a little bit about what it means to be in charge, and to be rulers, and to realise that there are people in the world who aren't the same as him and do not have the same opportunities. And, you know, last night I was watching TV and the news about, you know, this delightful government we have, and their you know, capping benefits, and you know, their relationship to the rest of society. And I just thought, you know, that's what King Lear is about.
Yeah.
These plays are great because they're universal,
Yeah.
and it feels like it's an important time to be putting that play on particularly.
Your choice in casting David Hayward, it's a great choice because he's a great actor, but you're also saying something about connecting with the past of the Citizens Theatre, and that must have been conscious.
Yeah. You can't deny, I think, nor should you deny, that this theatre had an extraordinary kind of golden age, and to a huge extent that's what put certainly the theatre on the map as far as I became aware of it. And I think that this is something that we should be celebrating, and actually gives us an enormous opportunity. So casting David as Lear, I mean, is great because he's a great actor and will do a fantastic job, but also there's something I think rather wonderful about the fact that in Giles Havergal's first tenure as artistic director over 30 years ago, David played Hamlet, and so there's something perhaps a bit telling about time passing, but you know, I feel again honoured that he's coming back and will play Lear for us in my first season. And I think, you know, I hope that there are lots of people who were at the Sits for a long time and have gone on to do great things, who, you know, once again will be able to come back and work at this theatre. Again, just the sort of love and affection that this theatre engenders, not only people who come here, but I think actors who spent time here.
Yeah.
Hopefully we can tap into that, and that will benefit us and our audiences.
Yes. It's certainly a theatre that means an enormous amount to me, because I saw, as a young person, Leonard Rossiter playing Arturo Ui here, and then one of my very first jobs in the theatre, big jobs, was the Tulip Stag and Black Oil, and Giles brought us in, and indeed, in that very generous act, kind of pulled 784 out of the fringe onto the main stage, and it had a huge impact on I think, the way people regard theatre in Scotland, that we don't seem to have a fringe and a mainstream, we have theatre. Yeah,
and I think, you know, I've talked about these kind of big classic plays that we're doing initially, but also I see another important strand of our work, which is about the classic Scottish plays of the last 50, 60 years.
You must have been very heartened when you hosted NTS's production of Mentioned Week.
Absolutely, and that's absolutely packed to the gunnels. And I think that is an important strand of our work that we will be doing more of. You know, that's something I love the fact that here we are in the Gorbals. You know, the tower blocks have been knocked down. We're surrounded by piles of rubbish, but in the middle of that, you've got this beautiful theatre, and Shakespeare, and Pint, and Beckett, and the sort of tension between the two, I think, is part of what makes this theatre so exciting. So not only I think there's the recent Scottish repertoire, I think also there's I'm excited by the idea of like the new Glasgow plays. You know, what are the new Mentioned Weeps? The new plays that celebrate the country and the city. So in the autumn we're hosting Glasgow Girls, Cora Bissett's new piece.
Ah, great. Which is next work after Roadkill.
That's right, and that is a play very much about events that happened in Glasgow over the last few years, but it's also a really celebratory story. You know, it's a musical. It brings in traditions and themes and musical styles from all over the place, and I think will be a great piece of theatre that feels perfect for the Sits. And I think that's what I love, that there is those two kinds of work can go together, and it doesn't feel wrong.
No. In a sense, you're making the classical popular, and the popular classic.
I think that's right. I think that's right.
Yeah.
Again, classic plays are classics because they are popular, because they're great. Otherwise they wouldn't be there in the repertoire.
I'm interested that, at least in the short term, you've decided to concentrate all your energies on the main stage.
I think that, you know, we can't do everything. I think we're in, of course, everyone's in straitened times. And I think that we need to establish or re-establish what the Sits is. And for me, the Sits is that, what physically is that auditorium. And that needs to be the focus of our energies. And I think if we try and fill that and the other two studios, it's just physically something will suffer, and you know, we'll be spreading our jam too thin, basically. So, I mean, I could think of nothing better than having 3 spaces that were packed every night of the year. I mean, how amazing would that be? And I think it was like that at one point. But that's something we have to aspire to. So at the moment, you know, it's all about the main house. But what we have started doing, which I'm excited about, is using those spaces for other companies and the other artists. For example, you or more are rehearsing here, which is a fantastic thing. And we've got other companies and artists moving into the building. So Stuart Lang's company Untitled, they will base themselves here. Cora Bissett's company Mama, they're based here.
Good.
Susie, your administrator, but also works for Vox Motors. Yeah. She's based here.
And they, of course, are bringing the Brothers Davenport here.
Exactly. So it's about, you know, making the place alive and buzzing and creative.
Yes.
Throughout the day,
yes,
as well as the evening.
That brings me really on to the next thing. Because you've worked at the Travers, you've worked in Dundee, you've worked in Perth, you worked at Scottish Opera, you worked at Oramore, you've got a pretty good grasp of theatre in Scotland, pretty wide grasp, and you've worked at the RSC recently, so you can compare it and contrast. But I'm interested, how do you feel about the state of theatre in Scotland at the moment?
I feel pretty positive. I feel, I think there are really exciting things happening, either that have been happening or there are opportunities and things that will be kind of emerging over the next few years. I think in Edinburgh, I think Orla's appointment to the Travers is a really good thing, and I think that will she'll really give opportunities to writers and in those spaces there. I think Oramore seems to continue to thrive. I hope that we will be able to really contribute something ourselves here at the Sits. So yeah, I feel positive. I don't feel that it's doom and gloom at all, really. It's funny, that question, isn't it? Because you kind of go, you sort of do the thing you do, don't you? And see that, and hopefully can see where it's going. But I still, the reason that I'm here is that I feel that there is an environment that feels creative and liberal and free and is a good place to make theatre. And I think there are lots of voices that are clamouring to be heard, and lots of people with lots of ideas, which is what we need. So yeah, I feel positive.
And obviously, in these straitened financial times, there's a lot of collaboration happening, a lot of co-productions being mounted. The NTS coming on the scene has galvanised the theatre in many ways, brought new resources to bear without having to spend them on a building. Do you see co-producing as something that you dip your toe into from time to time?
I think we have to. I think we have to. I think co-production is a good thing in that it enables companies to do more work, bigger work, it gives further life to shows. I think there is a danger that brands get diluted, because if we're all doing the same thing, then you might as well just have one company that produces work for everybody.
Do you think there's a case for, rather than directly co-producing, that for the building-based companies to send each other their
to share work,
best productions, so that if
and that is
Dundee takes something in from you, it's your work. And if you take something from their ensemble, it's theirs.
That is being discussed, and I think that will happen. I think, again, that needs to happen, that we can share work, and then we can maintain our identity. And people hopefully will get excited and build up an audience. Oh, there's a Sits show coming, and that is what the Sits do.
Do you also have ambitions for your work to go further afield?
Well, of course. I know, the Sits used to have a great international relationship, and we will certainly be looking into those opportunities. What I've always said, I suppose, about these things is let's get the work right first.
Yeah.
Let's put on work that people from further afield want to see.
Yes.
And then we can take it from there.
Yeah.
I think the danger is you put the cart before the
Yeah.
horse, and then you end up asking, well, why are we going abroad? Why are we chasing this?
Yeah.
And actually, let's put on work.
Let the work speak for itself to the widest possible audience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah.
It's fun. I think it's important to say that, isn't it?
It's our lives, isn't it? So it kind of needs to be.
And they're not called plays for no reason.
No. Yeah. No, it's fun. I'm looking forward to getting into the rehearsal room next week.
I think I'm looking forward to Dominic getting into the rehearsal room next week, and I'm definitely looking forward to coming to see the first play, The Trail, and the second play, Lear, and the Beckets. And I hope as many of you who've watched this chat that we've had today will do the same thing. Thank you, Dominic.
Thank you, David.